In my past life, I was pestered by my perverted ex-boyfriend. After we broke up, he harassed, stalked, and secretly photographed me. I was deeply troubled and called the police many times. However, my mother was always there to testify for my ex-boyfriend, saying that I was lying. I thought my mother was unreasonable, but she said with a smile, "He is so persistent. Isn't that exactly the sign of loving you? Why under-style forced love in novels is like this? It's your good fortune and so enviable." I chose to move away to escape, but my mother immediately informed my ex-boyfriend. As a result, I was confined in the basement by him and made into a specimen. In this new life, Mom, you don't need to envy me anymore. I'll give this good fortune to you. I struggled hard. The hempro probed my wrists and ankles until they were bloody and the bones were almost visible. But all in vain. I couldn't break free from the shackles and escape from the glass inked in front of me. Xavier, with an obsessed look in his eyes, stood on a high place and poured down the melted resin glue. The dried roses and the glue intertwined with the blood seeping from my ankles, creating a bloody and morbid beauty to the extreme at this moment. "No. Please let me go. Xavier. I'll promise you anything. Please let me go." The scalding resin glue burned my skin, climbing up little by little, covering my ankles, calves, waist and hips. I couldn't help but beg and scream. Xavier didn't stop his actions. "Baby, bear with it. It'll be over soon. I can't trust you anymore. You always lie to me. Only in this way will you not run away from me and be able to stay with me forever." The resin glue covered my chest, and the feeling of suffocation gradually overwhelmed me. Just then, I saw a familiar figure appear in the secret room. "Mom, save me, help me." I didn't know why my mother was at Xavier's house, but she was the only one who could save me. However, she stroked the glassed ink in front of me with a smile. "Fiona, there is a man who loves you so much. Loves you to the point of madness. You should be happy." I stared in disbelief. On the verge of death. Everything in the past flashed back in my mind like a revolving lantern. My mother was the most likely person to know the news of my move. From the beginning to the end, it was she who leaked my whereabouts to this pervert Xavier. My mother was smiling, but there was a malicious glint in her eyes. I understood. She was jealous of me. Jealous that I got the under-style forced love she had always dreamed of. The scalding resin glue poured into my nose and mouth. My screams were blocked in my throat, amidst Xavier's maniacal laughter and my mother's triumphant gaze. I died. Too, baby. I just love you too much. Everything I've done is to get closer to you. A flustered voice rang in my ear. The feeling of suffocation faded like the tide. I tried hard to open my eyes and saw that the person in front of me was Xavier. Instinctive fear made me tremble uncontrollably and want to escape. But Xavier grabbed me back and held me tightly in his arms. "Baby, don't break up with me. I won't interfere with your work anymore in the future." This sentence woke me up. Only then did I realize that I was not in Xavier's underground secret room, but in the house we used to rent together. I seemed to be reborn. Reborn at the time when I decided to break up with Xavier. This madman. In my previous life, Xavier's possessiveness made me suffocate. I was a kindergarten teacher. My daily work was to deal with children and parents, and it was inevitable to have physical contact with children. Once, when he picked me up from work, he saw me changing the pants for a little boy who had wet his pants. His gloomy look scared the children into crying. Since then, he began to oppose my going to work. The reason was that I would have physical contact with other men. But the oldest child in the kindergarten was only 5 or 6 years old. What kind of man was that? Then he found an excuse related to parents. When I talked a little more with no parents about the children's situation, he looked as if he was going to devour them. The kindergarten principal had reminded me many times. I also told Xavier not to pick me up from work anymore. But he thought I had something on my mind. Until one day, I was sick and took a leave from the kindergarten and didn't go to work. Taking this opportunity, Xavier resigned on my behalf, without telling me. Some parents had already complained about me, and the principal also thought Xavier was an unstable factor. So he was glad to see me go. I lost my job. Moreover, no other kindergarten was willing to hire me again. I didn't understand why. Xavier was very happy and said, "Baby, I'll support you. You don't need to go out to endure hardships and show your face." One day by chance, I discovered on Xavier's computer that he had faked identities, spread rumors that I had a corrupt moral character as a teacher, seduced male parents, and molested young male children. Only then did I realize that his control over me had long exceeded the normal range and would ruin me. So I resolutely broke up with him. After the breakup, that was when the real nightmare began. Stalking, secretly taking pictures, harassing. Just recalling some fragments made me shudder. If I could live my life again, I had to find a way to save myself. So, facing Xavier, who knelt down to admit his mistake, I held back my hatred for him, resisted the urge to perish together with him immediately, and pretended to be angry and aggrieved. Koge chill on the internet say that housewives will be out of touch with society and become ugly. And then you will fall in love with someone else. Xavier immediately swore, "I will always love only you." His oath made me feel a chill. The meaning of always loving only one person could also be always pestering and torturing only me. Isn't this a frightening kind of single-mindedness? Then promise me that you will let me keep your bank card. Otherwise, I don't feel secure. I tried to negotiate terms with Xavier. The experience from my previous life told me that I couldn't casually break up with Xavier, or he would retaliate crazily. I could only stabilize him first and then strive for favorable conditions for myself. Sure enough, Xavier hesitated. I shed tears. "You don't love me. You don't even agree to this little request. I want to break up with you." I made a show of getting up, but couldn't break free from Xavier's restraint. He put his arm around my shoulder and rested his chin on my neck. "Okay. Here you are. Darling. As long as you can forgive me, and not break up with me, I will give you my life." Xavier didn't seem to be suspicious of me. But in the middle of the night, I could feel him reaching over me to pick up the mobile phone on the bedside table. He thought I was asleep. In fact, lying beside him, I felt as if I was in an ice cellar and couldn't fall asleep at all. After a long time, he put down my phone. He bent over and hugged me, pressed his forehead against the back of my head, and his murmuring voice was like a venomous snake creeping into my ear. "Darling, don't try to escape from me. If you run away, I will catch you back no matter where you are. Your world can only have me in it." I was too frightened to move, but my breathing couldn't help becoming disordered. I didn't know if Xavier had noticed my abnormality. All I heard was a light laugh in the dark night. No, I can't just sit around and wait for death. I began to think about ways to fight back. Xavier has wronged me, and I will make him pay with his life. Besides him, there is also my mother. In my previous life, I regarded her as a safe haven, as a life-saving straw. So, after I broke up with Xavier, I went home. When Xavier asked and threatened me, I also went to my mother to complain and seek her help. Unexpectedly, in the end, it was she who tipped off Xavier and caused my death. I originally thought that my mother just liked to read novels about Wyander and forced love and was a bit muddled. As a result, she was completely poisoned by these messy novels. Even the life of her own daughter had become a sacrifice for her so-called sacred forced love in her eyes. She, who liked forced love so much, and Xavier, that extreme control freak, were simply a perfect match. The two of them should be locked together. In my previous life, after I broke up with Xavier, I went home to hide from him. Xavier came to block me at home time and time again, and that was how my mother got to know him. At this point in time now, the two of them are still strangers. I should find a way to let these two people meet first. Only after instigating them to fight against each other can I get out of that horrible hell. For early the next morning, I discussed with Xavier, and said that I was going home today. As soon as I mentioned going home, a chill immediately shot out in his eyes. Darling, why do you want to go home? I pretended not to know and walked over innocently with a smile to take Xavier's hand. It happens to be Friday today. I'll go home and say hello to my mother. You can come over after work in the evening. I want you to officially meet my mother. After all, now that I don't have a job, after thinking all night, I still think that getting married can make me feel secure. Once you've met my mother, you can't dump me. My cocaine's independent appearance pleased Xavier. He nodded with a smile. After he left, I went home immediately as well. As soon as I entered the house, I put my mobile phone on the shoe cabinet at the entrance. Last night, Xavier secretly fiddled with my mobile phone for nearly an hour. He must have installed a surveillance device in my phone. In my previous life, I was completely unaware. It was not until I had changed several jobs in Xavier, or could still accurately find my workplace, that I realized something was wrong and chose to call the police. The police also found the surveillance device installed by Xavier in my phone. The surveillance he installed was all round, so terrifying that it made one's scalp tingle. It could not only know my travel routes, but also review the content I had browsed on my phone at any time, and even monitor my every move in real time. In front of Xavier, I was like a naked and transparent person. So as soon as I got home, I was cautious and put my phone far away. There was no one in the living room. I walked to my mother's bedroom. The door of her room was ajar, and the curtains were drawn tightly. It was clearly daytime, but the room was pitch dark inside. The only source of light was the lit computer screen. My mother, in front of the computer, wearing a lace nightgown, knelt on the chair, with her whole body tied up with red ropes. Even without seeing the computer screen clearly, I knew that she was reading those novels about forced love again, with one hand sliding the mouse and the other tightening the red rope around her neck. She was intoxicated with the pleasure of suffocation. I knocked on the door and called her. Mom. Her mood was spoiled, and she gave me a sidelong glance. What are you coming back for? I ignored her question, and walked over to look at the computer screen. Sulwo seized the opportunity. It the man's collarbone when he was unprepared, and kneed him in the lower abdomen. The moment the man was in pain, she escaped like a snake towards the door, but was grabbed by the man by the back of her collar and dragged back. What followed was a long section of forced love plots, which were my mother's favorite. After I read it word by word, I sneered with a smile. Reading these stupid making novels every day. You can't even find a partner. My mother pushed me away angrily. Where is it stupid making? If you don't know how to appreciate it, just shut up. Normally, I would definitely not argue with her. But today, I had to say it. Look at this Sulwo. She's so stupid. Clearly wanting to escape from the hero's imprisonment. But she only knows how to anger him. The more she does this, the more it will arouse his desire to conquer. And he will not let Sulwo go. Men are all cheap bones. As long as you flatter and obey them, after a long time, they will naturally think you are boring. And maybe you can find a chance to escape. My seemingly casual remarks made my mother's eyes light up. She liked forced love, so she had lowered her posture during several blind dates, begging others to act out this crazy plot with her, scaring away many people, including in my previous life. She also tried hard to please Avi or by betraying me. She had never thought of doing the opposite. Angering men can get the results she wants more. Looking at my mother's suddenly enlightened appearance, I knew that she had taken my words to heart. Then I changed the topic. Mom, I'm back to get the household register. I'm going to marry my boyfriend. The news came suddenly, and my mother frowned and interrogated. Who is he? I didn't stop rummaging through the chests and cabinets. The one I've been dating all this time. His name is Xavier. He's a photographer. He's good in every way. But his possessiveness is too strong. He went to the kindergarten and resigned my job without discussing it with me. He doesn't like me to show my face in public. He can't wait to lock me at home, saying that he hopes there is only him in my world. I think it's quite risky to be a housewife without a job. It's more appropriate to get married. My tone was full of distress. What if he doesn't want me someday? As soon as I finished speaking, the household register in my hand was snatched away by my mother. I haven't seen this man yet. How can you get married? I'm your mother. I have to check for you. Looking at my mother's eyes full of shrewd calculation, I knew that she had received the key words possessiveness. Lock at home, don't like showing face in public. She hadn't seen a real-life Wyander yet. If he was real, she would never let it go. Over the years, the Wyander forced love that she couldn't get had become her obsession. 5 While waiting for Xavier to get off work, I told my mother in a complaining tone about all the things Xavier did to control me. For example, every corner of the house was full of surveillance cameras. For example, he couldn't accept other men touching me, even the children in the kindergarten. For example, I had to obey him even in dressing and eating. Otherwise he would punish me. The more I complained, the brighter my mother's eyes became. Actually, I'm a little afraid of him. But there's no way. I don't have a job now, so I can only marry him. I let out a long sigh. After listening to my long-winded complaints, my mother didn't say sorry as she did in my previous life. You don't know you're blessed while you are. Instead, she patted my shoulder righteously. Don't worry. Mom is here. As long as you don't want to. Mom won't take out the household register. If he wants to settle accounts, let him come to Mom. I nodded, moved lie. Just as we were talking, there was a knock on the door. It was Xavier. My mother went to open the door and was instantly stunned in place. I knew very well that just one look at Xavier would instantly set off my mother's Wyander radar. And then she would quickly fall for him. Because Xavier was truly the very image of an absolute standard paranoid Wyander. He looked refined and abstinent, wearing gold-rimmed glasses. But his brows couldn't be concealed by the lenses, showing a gloomy and treacherous look. His hands were long and pale, and his knuckles were red when he adjusted his glasses or tugged at his tie. His slightly bent fingers made the color of his knuckles even redder. Like blood. For people like my mother, he was simply an alluring poison. The moment she saw Xavier, my mother seemed to lose all her strength and was almost wagging her tail. I walked over and quietly poked her in the waist. And only then did she straighten up and assume the air of a mother-in-law. She even had a bit of a shrewish air, making things difficult for him at every turn. No matter how polite and courteous Xavier was, no matter how many nice words he said, my mother still didn't agree to let me marry him. At 11 o'clock at night, Xavier, having run out of patience, leaned back on the sofa, crossed his legs, and raised an eyebrow to ask, Auntie, just name your conditions. I truly like Fiona. I hope you can give your blessing. Xavier was sitting while my mother was standing. But somehow, Xavier's presence was more imposing. My mother put her hands on her hips as if to support herself and shouted loudly, My daughter will never marry a controlling beast and scoundrel. This one sentence made Xavier narrow his eyes. I knew he was angry. I looked very embarrassed and pretended to smooth things over, saying, All right. It's too late. Stop arguing. Let's go to bed first. We can talk about this tomorrow. I pushed Xavier into my room with my left hand and pushed my mother into her own room with my right hand. As soon as I closed the door, Xavier pinned me against the door, his palm stroking the back of my neck. Darling, your mother said these things. Did you deliberately speak ill of me behind my back? I quickly denied it. No. It's just, when I was cooking just now, I rolled up my sleeves and let my mother see these. She felt sorry for me. That's all. I didn't do it on purpose. As I spoke, I showed Xavier the red marks on my arm. These were all marks left by him. Xavier was silent. His fingers tapped lightly on the back of my neck, and his eyes were full of coercion and inquiry. But after all, he didn't continue to question me in detail. Instead, he seemed to ask casually, "This afternoon, I sent you several messages. Why didn't you reply?" He had noticed that I had been away from my phone for a few hours today, and he hadn't monitored any of my movements. Not a single word of what I had complained about him to my mother had reached his ears. It was not until Xavier came to the house that I quietly took my phone back to my side again. I haven't been home for so long. I was just spending time with my mother. I didn't notice. I didn't show any flaws. And my tone was soft and charming. Xavier didn't say any more and turned off the light to go to sleep. In the dark, he murmured in my ear, "Darling, even if your mother doesn't agree, I will find a way to make her agree." This sentence was a promise in Xavier's eyes and a threat in mine. But I could only pretend to be touched. Hugging him. "Yes. I believe you." Xavier chuckled softly and slowly patted my back to lull me to sleep. At 2 o'clock in the morning, he tiptoed out of bed. A moment later, the old wooden door of my mother's room creaked. Xavier went to find my mother and was finding a way. If Xavier could do things like surveillance and eavesdropping, so could I. I dug out 3 old, obsolete mobile phones from home. One was placed in the dining living room, one in my mother's bedroom, and the other was in my hand. Replacing my current mobile phone, I quietly connected my Bluetooth earphones and listened to the noises in my mother's room. "Ah!" My mother's short and shrill scream made me jump. Xavier was standing in front of her bed. By the faint moonlight, his figure was like a ghost. "You! What are you doing?" My mother was full of horror. "To get the household register." His words sounded high-sounding, but Xavier's hand had already clutched my mother's neck. And the threat was obvious. The room was too dark for me to see their expressions clearly, but I guessed that my mother's eyes must be full of infatuation. "I will never give my daughter to a beast like you." My mother still remembered what I had told her, and tried to provoke Xavier with her words. Xavier's hand froze in the air, obviously restraining his anger. But my mother cursed Xavier, like the heroine in the novel she had read in the afternoon. Words like lacking love, gloomy, and perverted came out crazily, each one hitting Xavier's sore spots. It was as heart-stabbing as it could be. Xavier finally couldn't bear it, and exerted force with his hand. My mother's shouts of cursing were choked in her throat by him, and the leet sounds turned into muffled groans full of twists and turns. Then he stuffed my mother's mouth with a pillow towel and pulled down the shirt on the hanger to tie her hands. "Auntie, you are Fiona's mother. I have been polite to you as I should. Since you don't accept the offer of a toast, then you'll have to take the forfeit." Xavier searched the room carefully for a long time, but didn't see any sign of the household register. His patience ran out. He fetched a basin of water, forced my mother to kneel on the ground, and pressed her head tightly into the water. When she was about to suffocate, he pulled her head out again. He asked again and again where the household register was. But my mother only had one sentence: "Even if you beat me to death, I won't tell you." She looked exactly like a great mother protecting her daughter. But the gasps coming from her mouth, apart from physical pain, were more of satiation and enjoyment. It was unbearable to listen to. Xavier got nothing. He didn't dare to go too far with my mother, for fear that if she turned against him and called the police, leaving behind evidence. He didn't even use any methods that would leave bruises. It was just that he hadn't noticed for the time being. So, his methods were actually enjoyable for my mother. "Darling, let's go. Let's go home." Early in the morning, Xavier wanted to take me away. "No. You can't go." My mother stopped me in a very serious way. "This man has evil intentions. Last night, after you fell asleep, he came to my room to steal the household register. I caught him, and he hit me. I can't let you marry such a man." I was stunned for 2 seconds. I didn't expect my mother to expose what had happened last night so bluntly. Since Auntie says I've done something wrong, why not call the police? If you don't have evidence, don't slander me. Xavier was calm and composed. He was really meticulous in doing things. But he didn't notice the monitoring mobile phone I had set up. I didn't plan to tell him so early either. Mom, did you have a nightmare? Xavier isn't such a person. I believe in him. I stood beside Xavier, took his hand, and my eyes were full of trust. You can't try to break us up just because you can't find a suitable partner for yourself. You just can't bear to see me happy. I muttered as if unintentionally, and then pulled Xavier and walked out. I don't care if you agree or not. Anyway, I'm determined to get married. In the car on the way home, Xavier asked me, "We didn't get the household register. What should we do?" I sighed and said, "We can only slowly persuade my mother. I really want to be with you forever. It's just that my mother has always had a hard life. And she's actually quite jealous of me. When I was a child, she didn't have new clothes or delicious food. After giving birth to me, she didn't let me have enough to eat, or wear warm clothes either. Later, when I was admitted to high school, she was forced to drop out of school because of marriage in the past. So she didn't allow me to study either. I still secretly went to work to earn my tuition fees myself." These words were not lies. I had always been aware of my mother's jealousy towards me. But in my previous life, I didn't want to believe that a mother would compete with her daughter. I stubbornly thought that all her harsh treatment towards me was only because of the limitations of her thinking. Because she was just an incompetent and weak woman, without the ability to give me a life of luxury or money to support my study, but still loved me in essence. However, when I got the forced love that she had always dreamed of, she would rather be Xavier's accomplice and use my life to please him. Only then did I completely understand that my mother actually didn't love me. She was so jealous that she wanted to destroy me. It was just that she had always been very good at playing the role of a loving mother, always pretending to be gentle and kind. Unless it was a major event, she wouldn't easily show her fangs. In daily life, she and I could always talk calmly. In my previous life, I was so stupid that I regarded her as my last straw, and ended up in such a miserable situation. So that's how it is. Darling, don't be afraid. It's all in the past. You have me now. Xavier saw that I was distracted and held my hand. His eyes were full of gentleness and heartache. The image of a little girl being abused by her mother that I created had aroused a strong desire to protect. At the same time, by telling him in advance that my mother and I were only seemingly harmonious plastic mother-daughter. When my mother said something unfavorable to him in the future, it could naturally be attributed to jealousy. It's so happy to have you. If I could get married to you earlier, I would be even happier. I snuggled in Xavier's arms, lowering my head and imagining the days when I would belong only to him after getting married. Sure enough, as I was talking, he interrupted me and gave me a promise. "Darling, don't worry. I said I would find a way, and I will definitely be able to do it." 7. Xavier began to visit my mother's house frequently. He said he was trying to persuade my mother, but I knew very well that he was going there to threaten and intimidate. And my mother also enjoyed this kind of game very much. When Xavier went there for the third time, in the hidden surveillance, I saw my mother kneeling at his feet with her clothes in disarray. Almost crazy. What's so good about Fiona? She doesn't understand your kindness at all. Every moment she is with you, she feels unbearably painful. She told me that you control her and she dreams of escaping. Look at me. How well maintained I am now. They all say I look like 30. Although I'm older than Fiona. I understand you. I'm no worse than her. My mother's accusations against me stepped on Xavier's sensitive area. He couldn't accept even the slightest disloyalty from me. I could see that Xavier's reason was on the verge of being exhausted. Once he went crazy. He would vent his emotions recklessly to fill the void in his heart. Just like he made me into a specimen in my previous life. I have to go and add fuel to his fire. I went out immediately and casually bought some vegetables on the way. Savior. Look. I bought some shrimps. When we get home later, will you make prawns and tomato sauce? I barged into my mother's bedroom with the vegetables in my hand. The scene of her being choked and slaughtered by Xavi just burst into my sight. Darling. Why are you here? When Xavi saw me, there was no surprise in his eyes. He just smiled, wiped the blood on his hands, and walked towards me to take the vegetables from me. There was blood seeping from the corner of my mother's mouth. Obviously, Xavi had shown no mercy. What are you doing? I hurriedly rushed to my mother's side and helped her up. Xavi raised his eyebrows and looked at me suspiciously. Darling, you were the one who said that your mother mistreated you when you were a child. Are you feeling sorry for her now? You still haven't answered me. Why did you go out without permission? I opened the page of the newly released policy on my mobile phone and said unhurriedly the prepared excuses. Look. Just now I saw that this new marriage policy is going to be piloted in our city. It will start in a couple of days. You can get a marriage license only with your ID card without the household register. I came to take you home and bought some vegetables by the way. Let's celebrate. The red-headed document has been issued. The household register held by my mother is now just a piece of waste paper for Xavier and me. And for Xavier, my mother is also a useless person with no value for use. That's really good news. Xavier sneered and glanced at my mother with a cold look like a demon from hell. If the gaze could turn into a real knife, my mother would have been cut into pieces by Xavier at this moment. But my mother still didn't realize the seriousness of the situation. She stood up, staggered towards me, grabbed my collar and roared, No. You can't get the license. I'm your mother. You can't do it without my permission. Why were you born to be well-fed and well-clothed? Why, even though you are a girl, your long-dead father still regarded you as a treasure? Why have I been a widow for half of my life and haven't found a satisfactory man? While you can get one so easily and he is so devoted to you? Why? The fingers of my mother clutching my collar dug deeply into my collarbone. This was the first time that I clearly saw my mother take off her disguise and show her claws and fangs at me hysterically. Even in my previous life, when I was trapped in a glass tank and my body was gradually submerged by resin glue, what I saw was still my mother's proud and elegant smiling face. It turns out that to take off my mother's mask, all it takes is a man. Xavier took me home. He held me on his lap and gently applied medicine to my collarbone, which was scratched bloody by my mother. Darling, your mother told me that you always complain about me to her. I sighed in my heart. What should come will still come and cannot be avoided. But I'm not afraid of Xavi making things difficult for me. He monitors me day and night. During the 2 hours when I complained to my mother, my mobile phone was not with me, so he didn't hear it. Otherwise, there is not a single flaw to be found. So, I calmed down, turned my head and let 2 lines of tears fall. Yes, believe what she said. No matter how much I tell you, you won't believe me anyway. I've told you a long time ago that my mother has always been jealous of me. She wants to destroy me, so she sows discord like this. It's best if you don't believe me. Just as she wishes, you can also marry her. Xavier is most vulnerable to my tantrums. In his eyes, my such childish behavior fully shows that I am not a mature and independent woman, but a pet like a kitten. I can only roll around and be controlled by just stroking my fur gently. Xavier did the same. He held me tightly in his arms and his delicate kisses fell on my earlobe. Darling, don't be angry. Of course I believe you. Just the thought that you might have the slightest aversion to me makes my heart ache. I'm really just too concerned about you. We are about to get married soon. I will never doubt you again. Don't be angry. Okay? I was easily coaxed by him and stopped crying and smiled instead, looking completely easy to be manipulated and controlled. Following the topic of marriage, I continued to say what I wanted to express. As long as I marry you, I will completely escape from that family and will never be calculated by my mother again. In the future, even if my mother comes to make trouble during the New Year or festivals, we will ignore her and let her make a fuss all by herself. We will just live our own little life. However, in case she really wants to make trouble, you must protect me and not let her hurt me again. It hurts so much. I moved the wound on my collarbone closer to Xavier's eyes. In this world, only you can treat me like this. I gently bit Xavier's ear, proclaiming my ownership. I am his possession and no one is allowed to hurt me. Sure enough, Xavier's eyes darkened. My mother has lost her reason and her disguise now. It is all too easy for her to want to hurt me again. I just gave Xavier a vaccination a short while ago. Less than 2 days later, when I was ordering takeout, my mother slipped into my house while I was opening the door. She grabbed my hand and dragged me outside, muttering, "You are not allowed to get married. Come home with me. If I can't have it, neither can you. There are surveillance cameras all over the house. I know Xavier will be back soon." So, while struggling, I pleaded, "Mom, Xavier and I truly love each other. I will only marry him. Please let me be. You can't always be jealous of me, just because you're not happy. I promise to be filial to you even after getting married." My seemingly submissive words stabbed my mother right in the heart. Finally, she lost her temper completely and slapped me hard, pushing me to the ground. I could easily defeat my mother in a fight, but I didn't fight back. I let her pounce on me, tearing my hair and scratching my face. When Xavier rushed back, what he saw was me on the verge of death. Through my blood-smeared eyes, I saw Xavier's clenched fists. At that moment, I knew his anger had accumulated to an uncontrollable level. 9 on the day we got married and received our marriage license. We didn't encounter any obstacles. Rarely. My mother didn't come to make a scene. The marriage procedures were simple, and there were few people getting married at the Civil Affairs Bureau. We didn't even have to queue for long before getting our license quickly. Just after walking out of the Civil Affairs Bureau's door, Xavier let out a long sigh of relief, with an expression of relief as if he had finally locked me firmly by his side. "Darling, I'm going to give you a wedding gift." Xavier brought me to my mother's house. I already had a hunch in my heart, because the night before, Xavier had gone out. In the surveillance camera at my mother's house, I saw his figure, but it was all dark and I couldn't see his actions clearly. I didn't hear any noise either. Only when he came back did I smell a faint smell of blood on him. Most likely from my mother. Even though I was mentally prepared, I was still frightened the moment I pushed the door open. The curtain in the living room was drawn, and only a thin ray of sunlight shone into the room. In the center, my mother was tied to a chair with a red rope in an extremely strange posture. The lace nightgown on her body was in tatters, revealing hideous wounds. The red rope was deeply embedded in her neck, as if it was about to cut off her neck, and her head inevitably drooped. Around the chair were blood spots all over the floor, showing the blood-innocent brutality of last night. "Darling, our new life is about to begin. It can't be ruined by your mother. So, I dealt with her in advance to give you a surprise. I said I would protect you and never let you be bullied by others again. If you want to keep a souvenir, I'll preserve her so that you can see her whenever you miss her. If not, I'll set it on fire so that there won't be any evidence left." Xavier hugged me tightly from behind, and his bewitching voice rang in my ear, like a ghost. I hadn't recovered from the shock yet. The next second, my mother's head slowly lifted up. Her lifeless eyes gradually regained their luster. 10 Ah! I let out a short cry, and was immediately covered by Xavier's hand. I turned my head to look at him. Cracks also appeared on his usually calm face, full of shock. Xavier's methods are clean and efficient. Presumably, he had checked last night and my mother was already dead. Now she has come back to life? "Xavier? Fiona? How are you alive?" My mother's voice was equally frightened, with a strange and morbid hoarseness. like a female ghost seeking revenge. No. You're already dead. You should be dead. I saw it with my own eyes in that glass tank. What's going on? She looked around. Her expression frantic. And I, from her few rambling sentences, was 80 or 90% sure this life's mother of mine had died last night. And this one now should be a transmigrator reborn from the previous life. Otherwise, she shouldn't have known that I died in the glass tank. I took a deep breath to suppress the indescribable excitement in my heart. The wrong has its origin, and the debt has its owner. If I can take revenge on the mother who killed me in the previous life, it will obviously be more satisfying. I secretly glanced at Xavier. His brows were tightly furrowed and his confusion hadn't disappeared yet. I have to strike while the iron is hot and cut the Gordian knot. Xavier. What should we do? She's awake. If she reports to the police. I hid in Xavier's arms in fear, shaking like a sieve. Xavier was awakened by my words. He stopped being indecisive and walked over nimbly, hitting my mother on the neck with one palm. Then he turned his head to look at me, hit her on the neck and knock her unconscious. Darling, I just let you choose between two options. Have you decided what to choose? After all, she is my mother. I don't want her body to be destroyed. Xavier chuckled softly. Sure enough. You are my darling. Kind-hearted and merciful. She treated you like this. But you still want to leave her body intact. Then I'll satisfy you. Wait for me here. I'll be back soon. Xavier kissed the corner of my mouth and turned to go out. He went back to the studio to get materials. Even though I hadn't given him any instructions or hints. Xavier still brought back the fish tank and resin glue. His thinking was exactly the same as in the previous life. He was going to make a living person into a specimen. Only this time, it was my mother. 77 The unbearable burning sensation woke my mother up. She struggled hard, only to find that her limbs were tightly bound. Fiona, save me. I'm your mother. You can't just stand by and watch me die. The scalding resin glue and the airtight glass tank can instantly arouse people's most instinctive desire to survive. When my mother asked me for help, she must have forgotten her betrayal of me. Now I stand outside the glass tank, looking as if it has nothing to do with me. Just like she used to be. And she, like I used to be, was crying and begging for help, taking advantage of the time when Xavier was mixing the resin glue. I crouched down and said to her silently, Mom, isn't this the blessing you've always dreamed of? I'm giving it to you. Shouldn't you be happy? Suddenly, my mother stopped begging. A moment of confusion flashed in her eyes. And then she suddenly realized, it's really you. You've come back to life. You want to take revenge on me. Fiona, you can't do this. This is matricide. You'll go to the 18th level of hell. I didn't answer and let her shout and curse. Back then, when she used my life to please Xavier, why didn't she think that this was also killing her child, and she would go to the 18th level of hell? A life for a life. This is what she deserved. Before my mother's scolding was over, another bucket of resin glue was poured down. She was so frightened, and that she became incoherent. Fiona, you can't do this to me. It was him who killed you back then. If you want revenge, you should go after. The rest of her words were all swallowed up by the resin glue. Only a face full of unwillingness and resentment was left, grotesquely trapped in the cooled resin glue. Of course I know that Xavier also killed me. Revenge should be done one by one. My mother is dead. Now it's Xavier's turn. 12 I knelt on the ground and traced the outline of my mother. Xavier packed up all the things and walked up to me. Just now your mother said. It was him who killed you back then. What was she talking about? I smiled like a flower. Just nonsense before death. Am I not alive in front of you? Why talk about death? We still have a long time to be together. I used his strength to stand up and wrapped my arms around Xavier's neck. I stood on tiptoe and a kiss landed on his lips, with a sweet strawberry flavor. Before going out to get the marriage certificate today, I specially prepared a mouth spray. a flavor that Xavier couldn't resist. Darling, your mother didn't want us to be together. Now we are husband and wife, and she can never stop us again. He couldn't help but press the back of my head, deepening the kiss. At the same time, his hand slipped under my skirt. Let her see how happy we are together. Okay? The panting in my ears grew heavier. I knew that Xavier was aroused. Xavier is not so much a Y-ender as a complete and utter psychotic killer. He killed my mother with his own hands. And he still wanted to do it at the murder scene, in front of the deceased. Such stimulation made it hard for him to restrain himself. I gasped and replied to him, and the hand on his chest pushed him slightly, pushing him to the living room sofa. He took me down with him and pressed on top of me. At this moment, he released his animal nature, rampaging like an uncivilized animal. I guided him to hurt me wantonly, leaving as many scars on my body as possible. When he completely lost his mind, I felt for the mobile phone stuck in the gap of the sofa, and sent the pre-prepared text message to the police. My husband killed my mother. And I'm next. Please don't knock on the door. Just break in directly. 13 When the police burst in, Xavier was grabbing my hair and burning my back with a cigarette butt. My body was covered with scars, looking like a complete victim. It quickly subdued Xavier and handcuffed him. I grabbed the sleeve of the female police officer as if grabbing a life-saving straw, and pointed at the glassed ink in the middle of the living room, with tears and snot running down my face. My mother. She was. I couldn't say the rest of the words. But everyone saw that a middle-aged woman was sealed in a glass ink, 1 meter high by the dried hard resin glue. Floating blood threads seeped from her wounds and surrounded her. Her expression was frozen at the moment when extreme panic and despair intertwined. The whole picture was absurd and terrifying, making people shudder, while everyone's attention was attracted by the glassed ink. The anger in Xavier's eyes was almost about to devour me. He realized that it was I who called the police. But what's done is done, and he can no longer make any more trouble. I handed the surveillance video that I had saved in the morning to the police. In the video, my mother pointed at Xavier and said that she would never marry her daughter to such a beast in human clothing. She looked exactly like a good mother protecting her daughter. But she was beaten and threatened by Xavier again and again. As for the other mobile phone that filmed her taking off her disguise later, and the mobile phone by which I was monitored by Xavier, together with the home surveillance videos, I had already destroyed all the evidence. Even if Xavier tried to frame me, he still couldn't find any evidence. The police visited the neighbors nearby. Many people had seen my mother covered with bruises and in an abnormal mental state during that time. According to the surveillance at the entrance of the community, Xavier was indeed photographed entering and leaving late at night many times. The timeline was complete and the motive for the crime was sufficient. Xavier couldn't escape. Because the case was complex and serious, I waited for the final judgment for a full 3 years. Xavier was convicted of intentional homicide with extremely bad circumstances and was sentenced to death. It was not until the judgment was made that the nightmarish experience truly passed. I let out a deep breath and walked out of the court. Outside, the sun was shining brightly and the spring scenery was pleasant. I looked down at the balance on my mobile phone. There was a lot of money. My mother's inheritance, plus Xavier's. Unexpectedly, I had become a little rich woman, reborn in this life. I had my revenge and also got the money. It was not a wasted life. The future is full of promise.